In the last video, we looked at the Gantt chart, but I jumped into the timeline for a couple things. So let's dig into the timeline panel and the analysis panel a little more deeply. So the first thing I'll show you is that you can zoom in to the timeline by going from weekly to a daily view. And what we're showing you here is the results of our delay analysis day by day. And you can see the icons, the graphics here are showing you the per day impact to the finish date. You can zoom out by going from weekly to minimal. And here what you're seeing is period by period, what was happening over the course of the period. So for instance, in period 7, we had 21-day delay this week. Actually, no, this whole period, the month of February. We had a 21-day progress delay. But that's just the first half of the half step. The second half of the half step are the schedule revisions. So if I expand those, we see that there were 2, resulting in an 8-day delay, and we've split them into 2 groups. The first is network revision. And so I can immediately see 5 activities were added, 5 relationships were added. How do I know that's what these 5s mean? I can hover over the table header and see. So let's dig into there. Actually, before let's jump in and we can see what the 5 activities that were added and the 5 relationships that were added. And there's a one-to-one correspondence there. We can also see these columns FB and FA. That stands for the float before the change and the float after the change. And so because the float was 0, this is part of the critical path, it probably did have something to do with the 8 days of delay from schedule revisions. The second set of revisions was just one revision, and that's a WBS change. And when I click on that, we're just telling you, even though it probably didn't mean anything in terms of the 8-day delay, that this node was added to the WBS. So the final thing I want to point out are at the beginning and end of each period, and I'll jump back to weekly, we show you at the start of the period, we recalculate the critical path. And we want to make sure, because we're not using Primavera's engine, we're using our own, which works like Primavera's. But if we came up with a different finish date than Primavera did at the start of the period, we're going to show you that here. And because it's blank, we didn't. Similarly, when we finish the period, we've applied all the progress, we do another recalculation, and assuming it's blank, we got the same results as Primavera. But if we don't get the same results, we want to make sure you know that. One of our design principles is transparency. And then at the end of the period, as I've covered, you've got schedule revisions.